This is John Jackson Miller, and you're listening to the Star Wars Canon Podcast. May the Force be with you.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast, episode number 74. Can you believe it? Thank you guys for joining me to talk about our favorite thing in the world, yet again, Star Wars. I am your host, Brian Miller, and I am joined once again by my Wookiee co-pilot, my brother in the Force, all the way from across the pond from where I'm at, which is insane. So please, try to keep your judging down when it comes to any technical difficulties or anything like or connection issues. It's nothing we can help. So, but joining us from across the pond is the Egyptian Wookiee himself, Mr. Usef Waly. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for that. Yes. So the technical difficulties will keep rolling in no matter what we do.
Yeah,
I am the Egyptian Wookiee. It's because I'm almost as hairy as one, but it is because I'm Egyptian. That's for sure.
and you're tall too.
I am
Very
quite
tall.
big as well. I know Wookiees are way over, maybe even 8 feet tall. No, how tall is a Wookiee?
I think he's 7 feet. He's 7.5 foot, something like that.
7.
Han leans against him like he's nothing.
So I'm not as tall as Americans might be because I am 6'4.5". I'm 6'4", 6'5".
You're taller than me.
Size. well, yes. And I'm quite hairy as well. But the idea is that, I do love Wookiees. Wookiees are amazing. They're fun. They're fantastic. And Star Wars characters in general tend to have quite a little something that, everybody can try to sort of identify with one of their own. And I genuinely try to identify with Wookiees. I'm quite as loud and I growl like one as well sometimes. So.
Oh, guys, we've got a heck of a show lined up for you tonight. We've got a lot to talk about. I would definitely want to talk about, since we didn't have an episode last week, I had some things going on, and I wanted to try to get the website updated before we came back and try to get caught up on some novels. I've made some really good leeway on some novels, so I took the weekend to try to make some progress on all of that and decided that this episode we would talk about last week's episode, this past week's episode, and then we'll talk about where we see the finale next week going for AHSOKA. So before we get into all of that, though, I just want to let you guys know, go check out our website. It is starwarscanon.net. You guys can go find that website. The timeline is still not finished, but I'm getting it there. It's a huge timeline already. Who shared in our chat the other day, Usef, was it Steven that shared the Canon versus Legends, how much had come out over the course of the years?
Right. Yes.
It was okay. So it was like what was it? It was half. It was half of what Legends showed over 25 years, but Canon's like 9 years old. So there's a lot more Canon than people realize there is, and so I've had this stack of comics sitting on my desk for the last 6 months that needed to be read through. I've got it down to a stack like this now and started having what I call B&B parties, bag and boarding parties, where I take all the comics I've read and go bag and board them and stick them in my long box and organize them and everything. So I had my B&B party the other night, long overdue. So that's why we didn't have an episode last week, and we're going to make up for it this week. So definitely go check out starwarscanon.net. And that website, you guys can find a lot of your Canon stuff there. And even Legends, if you guys are Legends junkies, the entire Legend timeline is there as well, so you guys can find that also. So without further ado, Usef, let's get into not this past week's episode of AHSOKA, but let's talk about last week's for a minute, just to kind of get some thoughts out there of where we think we're going. So we're actually going to be talking about 3 episodes of AHSOKA. One of them's not even out yet. So the last week's episode, we were coming off the cinematic one that they released in theaters with Anakin coming back and AHSOKA basically being reborn. We were coming off of that, and now we've got this episode where obviously the big thing in this one, and kind of the thing I think we need to talk about the most, is the return of Thrawn. Thrawn's finally back. So, what were your thoughts? Like, what did you think of Thrawn? Because I know there's a lot of people online that are fat shaming him. I've seen fat shaming of Thrawn. I've seen people going, "What did they do to my boy?" Like, showing the legends versus the canon, and like even the novels versus the show. So, what did you think of Thrawn? What were your thoughts when he came on screen? And do you think there? And I know you haven't. I know we were just talking before recording. You're getting ready to start the novels. I know that. What do you think of this Thrawn so far?
All right. So, firstly, when we just finished the episode before that, we were dead set ready to see Thrawn. We wanted an episode that showed us Thrawn and the ulterior side of the show, not really something that would have focused on Ahsoka or Sabine, which we got a lot of Sabine, but we wanted to see where, the evil side was. We got it. We saw Thrawn in a lot of glory, a whole lot of glory. We saw his amazing crew and the whole ship just make an appearance. The way it arrived, the music, the power with it, and the army that showed, and we're going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
Let's just take it in steps for now. Let's just take it in steps because there's a lot to unravel here. Thrawn, to me, firstly, the choice of the actor. I know he was also voice actor in Rebels.
Yes. Yeah.
He is such a suave guy when you see him in person. So if you have not necessarily been a fan of his or haven't seen him, if you've watched House of Cards, for example, he is the Russian Putin in House of Cards. And he's done this thing where you see him so suave and negotiating and sort of poking these holes into the Underwood side sort of thing. This actor is so cool. He can appear so calm in the middle of an entire huge shitstorm. He's so impressive in his own way. And I felt that come across as Thrawn. I did not. So what I thought would happen is that a Star Wars character would just be something else. No. He was the same suave, calm character. He showed me all the power that Thrawn could wield as a strategist. And he was still a very calm, powerful persona in himself. And that was evident also in the latest episode when he did something in terms of being a strategist and actually control troops in a certain way, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. In terms of the fat shaming, okay, so I did not. So I have not yet read the Thrawn novels. I will do once I finish Ahsoka. However, that being said, I have seen Thrawn in Rebels be a very ultra-thin man, and all of a sudden I'm seeing him not so thin in Ahsoka. I'll be honest, the only reason this is a cause for concern for me is that actually in Rebels, Thrawn actually showed some physical prowess in martial arts.
Right.
He did. He was so good as a strategist, but extremely good as a person who could defend himself physically. And, he caused quite a stir in the Rebels episodes as well. He was practicing with some droids, and then all of a sudden he's one-on-one with the droids that they're actually not just under his control and he's training, and all of a sudden they're actually turned on him, and he defends himself quite masterfully. And he shows again some more defense skills against Fulcrum, not Ahsoka. Yeah. So there's quite a few scenes there where I'm like, actually, Thrawn shouldn't be so overweight, but I'm trusting this. This is my overall answer. I'm trusting this because the way films are nowadays, the way filming is in general. If an actor needs to lose weight, he can lose weight. Like there's no reason why they're gonna say, "Oh, okay, you're overweight, then I guess we're gonna have to be overweight for this show." It's not the '80s anymore. It's not the '90s anymore. If they want him to lose weight, he will. So I'm pretty sure this is a conscious decision, and at the moment, in Filoni we trust, right? So I'm completely in for this. Like I'm just waiting to see this. Why is he overweight? Why is he not overweight? Why should he be overweight? Why should he not be overweight? And the control Thrawn has over his troops, there's a lot to be said there. There's a lot to be said there. So I'll leave it to you now to start talking your opinion on Thrawn and switch over to his troops, because there's a lot to talk about his troops.
So when we were watching this episode, and his entrance was chilling. His entrance was
sublime.
So perfectly well done.
Sublime.
When you feel that, when you see Sabine in the cell, right, and she's trying to use the Force on the wall and the dirt starts to shake out of it, you're like, oh, hey, she's doing it. No, you're not. Thrawn's coming. And so when they showed the Chimera, like when they start to pan up over that and you see the top of the Star Destroyer, I'm like, no way. Here he comes. He's here. He's finally coming. Like, this is what we've been waiting on, right? And so the way it just comes in and just sets down on that pedestal, like perfectly where they can walk right out of that bay. We knew he took stormtroopers with him. We knew, like, his garrison went with him when they shot off into hyperspace, right? We knew there were stormtroopers on board. We saw them. When Ezra turns around and uses the Force to close the door, we know there's stormtroopers there.
Yep.
But to see that many of them, and now they're called, what are they called? Night troopers is what they're calling them?
Night troopers.
That's so cool, dude. That's so cool. I love how they got the red wrappings on them, like the Dathomirian witches and everything like that. And I just absolutely, I like their armor, how they've got, the cracks in the armor over the last 9 years, and they replaced it with this gold, and, and repaired their armor, and it's dirty, and it's matted, and it's broken, and I love it. Like, they're survivors. They have been, if they're alive, right? Because there's this theory that they're,
explain that.
Resurrected zombies.
Let's just go through that theory just in case.
Do you think they are? Do you think they're dead? And they've just been reanimated? I don't know. I don't think so.
Not only do I not know, but I'm willing to bet they're not fully reanimated. They're not fully dead. I think that they have been enhanced. Okay. I don't know how. I'm not sure if that's true. I'm just guessing, because the way we saw his next in line, his chief,
Captain Enoch. Yeah.
Well, yes, there we go, Captain Enoch. Exactly. That's his name. So the way he speaks is so cool. He has his own voice box. Yeah. He's so cool. He's so straight to the point.
Sounds like Ben Affleck's Batman. Yeah.
The way he sounds is not human, but not ghostly.
Right.
So I'm wondering if he's something in between.
Right.
I'm wondering if they could have been something that's quite, not humanly, but they're not dead yet. And he mentioned that they had taken many losses.
Yeah, they had.
Well, a loss is a loss.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have said, "Oh yes, but I have figured a way to solve these losses." You know what I mean?
Right.
If he's taken losses, then he's taken losses. Then they're lost. That's what I think, to be honest with you.
I don't think.
But then, of course, there's no way for us to actually predict this. This part is new to all of us.
Yeah.
And none of us is certain how best to go about this part.
I don't think you're wrong. I think they're just enhanced. I definitely think they're enhanced.
Enhanced?
They almost had to have been at this point, because they shot off to an entirely new galaxy, let alone not just a new planet, a new galaxy. And they had to survive for 9 years, and that many of them survived. They have to be hardened survivors at this point. You know what I mean? Like, they've seen some stuff. I'm guarantee that at least one or two of them have had to eat one of their comrades, right? I'm almost willing to, like, they've seen some stuff at this point.
Absolutely.
And Thrawn, he's got some tears on his uniform. He's got some scuff marks, and, he's not pristine like he should be, but he's pretty clean for being gone for 9 years, and it looks like he ate pretty well. I'm not going to fat shame him. I'm just saying, looks like he was eating pretty good. So he wasn't starving by any means. So that's where I'm at with the fat shaming thing. That's crap. Just lay off the fat crap. Like, that's such a stupid thing to complain about. You have Thrawn. They're giving you a live action Thrawn, and you're worried about the size of his waist. Shut up. Shut, like, excuse my language, because I don't like to, like, shut the hell, just shut up. Just stop. Nobody cares. You know, take the live action Thrawn and freaking enjoy it. You know,
let's just be clear. We on the Star Wars Canon Podcast, we on 1138 Productions, we love and welcome everybody's opinions, no matter what. We just find it
but not
outlandish that
fat
somebody would actually complain.
So stupid.
About
such
somebody.
A stupid thing to complain about. It pisses me off when I see it. It's so stupid. And you know, literally take the gift that Dave Filoni has given you.
If somebody feels like this is not necessarily canon accurate,
mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. That is an interesting point to raise.
Right.
However, it's not something to complain about. There's a big difference.
but here's the way I look at the way things get translated from animation to live action. I actually look at it and, you know, what if it had happened in reverse, right? So let's say we had the live action Thrawn first, or the live action Ahsoka, or the live action, why can't I think Cad Bane? Like, what if we had the live action version first, right? And then they went and did the cartoons. What would they look like in that animation style? Pretty close to what they look like now, right? In animation. Thrawn would have looked like he does in Rebels, you know, and so I don't have a problem with them not looking perfect. You know, I mean, they look good. Don't get me wrong, they look good. I love Thrawn. When his voice is just like this smooth, buttery molasses that just rolls off the tongue, and it's like you could just listen to him. I want because I know they're going to come out with more Thrawn novels. They have to at this point to categorize, you know, what happened in the last 9 years. I want Mickelson to read. I want him to do the audiobook. I'll listen to the audiobook. I'll listen to him read it.
I'd love it. I'd absolutely 100% love it.
I absolutely 100%. Just like how they got 100%. Ashley Eckstein to do the Ahsoka novel. She did the audiobook for Ahsoka. I wanted him to do the next Thrawn novel audiobook. I want it. So make it happen. But no, I thought he was a great live action translation.
He's a great Thrawn.
Great Thrawn.
He's an absolute great Thrawn.
As soon as he started talking, I felt like I was watching Rebels again. My wife and I were laying on the bed when we were watching it, and when the Chimera finally appeared, I actually stood up off the bed and was like standing in front of the TV with my arms crossed, like, this is happening. This is actually and then when he and it was such a great entrance. All the camera angles, everything was perfect.
No, it was great.
All of it was so what's the word I'm looking for? Dramatic. It was so intimidating. It really had a lot of gravitas to who this guy is, right? And so when he comes up, he's like, "Great mothers, I salute you." And like, it actually is so perfect. So I loved it. So this episode also showcased a lot more of Baylan and Shin, and we learned a little bit more about some of Baylan, maybe some of Baylan's.
They were great. They were absolutely great.
Yeah, some of his motivations. Really, really liked him a lot, and Baylan is quickly becoming my favorite new character. I mean, if he's not already, and Shin's right behind him. I saw somebody what was it? I saw a video online the other day. And the guy making the video or that was a girl. She was talking to one of her friends about Baylan and Shin, and her friend referred to Shin as a sexy little Funko Pop. So I was like, yeah, no, I see it. Like, that makes sense. And I keep seeing guys going, I can fix her. I can make her better. I can fix her. You know, just let me fix her. She's not all bad. I bet I can make her better. But no, I'm really enjoying them both, and they both have Black Series figures coming now. I'm very excited about that as well. But I thought it was a great episode. That was also the episode we got Ezra. We finally got to see Ezra again. Did you notice that? Because I think I brought it up on Newsnet last night, and one of the other guys had noticed it too. But Ezra's like chainmail armor that he has on underneath his Moses robes were made of Stormtrooper dog tags. I don't know if you caught on to that or not.
Whoa!
Yeah. So
I didn't see that. No.
What did you think of Ezra's entrance? Do you think it was done right? What do you think of him? You know, of Amon playing Ezra. What are your thoughts on Ezra, man?
I mean, Ezra in general. So first, I'll talk about the entrance. Mm-hmm. It was cool. He felt older, not as young, obviously, as in Rebels, which makes sense. He felt like he had the same energy, which was very, very cool. He felt done right. And in terms of the entrance, I was like, oh, yeah, it's Ezra, boom, boom, boom. But then, let's talk about the next episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I can't. So it's kind of like Sabine as well. So Sabine took a little bit of time just to warm up to her as an actress, but overall, I have taken her on as Sabine. Ezra is kind of in the same boat for me. He's not automatically Ezra, but I think I will take him on to be Ezra as well. The thing is that there's a really strong difference between Rebels Ezra and this one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Huge. Now, this makes sense because if you had to say, oh, well, he hadn't hit puberty yet, and all of a sudden he looks like Moses. All of a sudden he was completely clean shaven, and now he's got almost Brian's beard. So it's weird. It's weird. So Ezra looks much older, and he feels, this is the more important bit, he feels much older.
Yeah.
He feels like a much more mature character than Ezra was in Rebels. Ezra in Rebels, he ended Rebels in such a huge way, which was beyond his years. So it makes sense that Ezra is quite mature now, and he's had time to reflect within himself, within the Force,
Right.
and live in a way, he doesn't have a community around him. He's only got these natives, which he's lived around. This seems to be the only thing he's lived around. It's been a few years. I hope he hasn't only lived around these guys. But this seems to be the only thing so far that he has to have gone about living with. Yeah, that's hardly enough. But this guy hasn't been driven nuts. This guy hasn't gone crazy. This guy is basically himself.
Yeah.
He's just trying to chill,
He's ready
trying
to
to
go
live
home.
in a settlement.
Yeah.
He's ready to go home. That is a very important
Yeah.
point. He is absolutely ready to go home because he doesn't rush Sabine telling her, listen, we got to get home. Tell me, are you taking me home? No. So what he does is he talks about everything. He's like, okay, so how are we getting home? How'd you get here? We're going to have to talk about going home soon, right? And there isn't that much desperation in his voice, but you can see
No,
it.
he wants to go. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, he does.
Exactly. And by the way, so I loved the fight where he's like, no, I don't need that lightsaber. I don't need that. The Force is my ally. And he just flips front, flips back, and then pushes a guy with the Force. And then flips front, flips back, dodges this, dodges that, grabs a guy, and then pushes somebody else with the Force. Whoa.
Yeah.
Dude. Cool. Super cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
So he gave up his lightsaber. And clearly he hasn't found another kyber crystal where he is. Otherwise he would have made himself something. Even if it was out of a tree, or like a lightsaber out of a tree, he would have made it. We believe in that he would have made it. But he clearly hasn't found the kyber crystal, so he's just learned how to use the Force as an intermediate sort of level of a Force push
Right.
or something just to get rid of his opponents. It's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
Like Krav Maga with the Force. Hell yeah. Taekwondo with the Force, for sure.
I like when Shin and Balin show up for the first time, and Ezra sees them, and he's like, "Bad guys," and Sabine's like, "Yeah," and he's
Lightsaber?
like, "Lightsaber, yeah." He's like, "All right, here we go." Like crap, and so I liked it.
Are we now going to move on to Ahsoka fighting Balin for the second time?
We can, yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, before we do, real quick, I wanted to bring up the whole conversation Sabine and Ezra was having.
Sure.
Catching him up on what happened in the galaxy and everything like that. When he's like, so the Empire was defeated, and she's like, Battle of Endor, and he was like, and the Emperor died, and she's like, that's what people are saying. It matches with what's going on in the novels, because a lot of people saw that as propaganda. No, the Emperor didn't die. Nobody killed the Emperor. He's fine. And so and so it was one of those things.
Well, not fine, but yes.
Right, yeah. But he kind of fizzled out, eventually, and so people realized it wasn't propaganda. He actually was gone. But it makes a lot of sense. But even 10 years, 8 years removed from Return of the Jedi, they were still, that's what people are saying, I think he's dead. And asking about Hera and Zeb, I thought it was really cool. And he's like, so I missed it all. And here's the thing that dawned on me, and it's like, oh crap. Like, Ezra lost 9 years from home, from everybody, right? Yep. To make sure that Thrawn was taken somewhere where he couldn't hurt anybody. and now Thrawn's getting ready to come home. So that 9 years was wasted. He went and he put up with 9 years for nothing, just to have Thrawn come back with, if you're right, enhanced stormtroopers, Dathomirian enhanced stormtroopers, and we know it's going to be in.
It may have been
battle.
a negative.
Yeah. So I'm wondering how he's going to take it, because they still haven't told him how they got there or what's going on, or he's just like, are we going home? Let's go. He's still this optimistic, like, let's get the hell out of here. And
look, it's complicated. How complicated?
Yeah, is it complicated as usual? A little worse. Oh, great. So, I'm waiting for the fallout from that. I know I think it's going to be a bad fallout, but yes, we can absolutely go to.
I really did like how Sabine seemed to feel around it, because that was something semi-important to me, I suppose. Semi-important is a nice term. I don't know. But so in the first few episodes, the way Sabine is like so occupied with finding Ezra, not just because he's Ezra, but because she feels that he is her only real family left, that she feels so close to. And then when they actually meet, it feels like that. It feels they're so close. It feels like she's like she feels so relaxed. They start the last episode. She clearly had a rest or a kip or whatever. And she's like, thanks, and that's not just a normal thanks. It's not just like a colleague saying thanks. She's like, yeah, I rested. Thanks for that. That was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that bit. I don't know, like it was just something in the tone or in the speech.
Right.
I like that.
I really like them together. I think they're both.
Yeah.
So Sabine, for me, like you said earlier, Sabine's growing on you. The actress is growing on you. From the moment I saw her on that speeder bike in the first episode, and it was like the Top Gun thing where she was on the highway, and whenever she'd look over and talk to the E-Wing, right? Like, it was, to me, that was pure Sabine. She won me over that moment. Ezra has won me over also. Like, it not so much in like his first appearance episode, but in this episode he really did. Especially when he's like, "Whoa, wait! But before you kill us, don't you want to take us as prisoners?" And it's like, it's so Rebels.
Super Ezra.
It was so Rebels. Ezra Rebels. And he's like, "Do you not want to talk? Do you want to take us as prisoners?" And she's just like, "Fire!" I loved it. It was pure. So that was the moment he won me over as Ezra, when he's like, wait, and so that won me over. We've got to talk about before we talk about the Ahsoka versus Baylan, because that's a huge thing. I want to talk about that in a minute. We got to talk about this cameo at the beginning of the episode real quick. The cameo in the courtroom. What did you like? Kirsty and I were watching this, and before you even saw him, you hear him before you see him. Yeah, and I heard Kirsty was like, "Are you serious?" And then it cuts over, and you just kind of see his arms and shoulders behind the. And
yes, but I must come in and make it.
Loved it. I had tears in my eyes. It was I was grinning like an idiot from ear to ear. I was trying to wipe tears.
We know what it means.
Yes, and
not
for
just
him,
the gold tin can. No.
And it was actually Anthony Daniels. They did say that was him in the suit. It was actually him. Yeah. So
there we go.
And so for him to come in,
so much time left on this
use
earth
him.
With this man.
Use him. But the fact that he came in and he's like, I am here, to represent the honorable Senator Leia Organa.
I'm here
it's
to
like,
represent the honorable Senator Leia Organa.
I loved it when you're just hearing Leia's name is like, oh yes.
That was my bit actually. Not just seeing him. Seeing him was like, what the F is he doing here?
Yeah.
And then everybody's over there looking at him.
Even Mom Mothma was like, 3PO?
Mom Mothma was like, 3PO. Well, that was the whole thing,
yeah.
right? That's like, Mom was like, 3PO? What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And then he comes in and then he's like, well, actually, Leia Organa had actually
sanctioned the mission,
sanctioned the mission herself for this.
Yeah.
And then the other senator's like, preposterous. What on earth is going on here? And she's like, no. We need to listen to this evidence right here. So clearly, Leia's doing her thing, even without even being there. She's just like, but Hera's in trouble.
Thing.
What did Hera say? Oh, Ahsoka. Oh, boom. What does she need? Okay, let me just insert this little bit here. And she's head of the defense council, so she's just like, boom.
Right. And she put that little nudge in there too, is like, and you held the vote without me. Bad on you, so I liked it.
And if anybody else needs any issues discussed about this matter, just please address it straight to Leia. She's like, whoa.
Because this is the second episode we've had Leia mentioned. Do you think we're going to get Leia as a cameo next week?
I do not think so.
No?
I think that it's going to be.
It's coming.
Like you
it is coming.
Said. Yes,
it is coming, but you don't think it's going to be in the finale?
Okay. Firstly, I am notoriously bad at predictions, but also I'm not saying this because I think my prediction is going to be coming against me or anything. Nothing like that. I just think, honestly, I don't know what to think, and I'm worried that if I hope for a Leia cameo, then I'm not going to get it at all because. Right. I really, really, really want a Leia cameo everywhere. So what I think's going to happen in the next episode is not going to be... I can say this now. It's not going to interject with anything we're saying. I think that it's going to be focused on the main characters, on Thrawn, on Ahsoka, on Ezra and Sabine. I think there's going to be a lot... I think someone's going to die. Yeah. I'm not sure who it is. It might be Shid. It might be...
You've got to set Thrawn up as a bad guy.
Yes. God forbid Huyan kicks the bucket.
Oh, that.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying it.
He's like 26,000 years old. You can't do that to the guy.
I haven't seen him in any period post that. So I'm worried, and he's got to find a way to end somehow because Luke doesn't keep him on later.
Right.
So I'm sorry to bring this up, but I just. Here's the thing, right? What else is going to happen? And this has to end in a...
Thrawn has to win.
Thrawn has to win.
He has to.
Yeah, but there doesn't necessarily have to be a shock factor.
Right.
At the end of this.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily. Because I had not previously seriously considered the possibility of Ahsoka Season 2.
Right.
I personally...
What the heck?
What is this? What is
what the... Are you... Now it works? Do I get the thumbs up one? Is it going to do it? Oh, no. It still doesn't work for me. You're just special, Usef. What the heck, dude? Oh, what the heck? You suck. If you guys are listening to this on Spotify, we're actually recording on an encoding software. You have no idea what's going on. Usef made a peace sign and balloons started flying all over the place, gave a thumbs up, and don't do it. Oh, what the heck? This is crap. This is crap. Is it going to do it again? It is. I'll be dang. What the heck? I didn't know it did that. No, you're right with Thrawn. Like, he's got to win, and this episode has to set him up as the bad. That's the bad guy. Usef can't stop playing with it now. As bad as that sounds. So like we were talking on. Oh my God, we were talking on Newsnet Live. I think last night. We did it on Thursday night. We were asking, is Thrawn going to do? Is there going to be a big Thrawn moment in this episode? There has to be, because a lot of people who are watching this show, not everybody, obviously. The sweaty Star Wars fans have read the books. We've watched Rebels. We know who Thrawn is. But a lot of people who are watching it don't know who Thrawn is. And if you're setting up a movie, let's just call it Heir to the Empire for the sake of argument. Let's just say you're setting up the movie Heir to the Empire, and Thrawn's going to be the big baddie. You need to get people to be excited about seeing him as a villain and be like, how are they going to beat him? So you have to show what he's capable of in this show to get people to go see that movie. You got to show how big of a threat he can be. What makes him so special? And I think we're definitely, because the next episode I think is 50 minutes. I think it's on par with the episode that they showed in theaters. And so there has to be this big moment. It's got to be a Thrawn, like a classic Thrawn moment from what you read in the novels. Rebels has kind of done it a little bit, but I don't think they've done it to the degree the books have. Like they've shown how smart he is, but hasn't utilized it the way he does in the novels, And so I want to see it. I want to watch that happen now. And I think it's going to be a big enough deal that even going back to the Leia thing, I think Leia's going to make a cameo in the next episode. I think she's going to realize, because Mon Mothma already realizes this is a huge threat. She came down and talked to Hera. How big a threat is this? And she's like, we need to prepare for the worst. Leia's going to be involved in that. She's part of the defense committee. She has to be a part of it. So there's going to be a Leia cameo in this next episode. There has to be. In my mind, there has to be.
It sounds awesome. I'd love to see it.
I would absolutely
love to see it.
If she's not going to be in the next episode, she's going to be in the Heir to the Empire movie. She's going to be. The fact they dropped 3PO in this episode shows me that they are going to use the characters that make sense to be there. And when they do this movie, if he's such a huge threat, Han, Chewie, Lando, the droids, Leia, Luke are all going to be coming out of the woodwork to fight this threat, to defend the New Republic before it gets destroyed, before it can really become anything. So this just solidifies it for me. I know at some point I'm willing to put a year's worth salary on we are going to get the big original 3 somewhere in the future. I'm hoping Leia is next week. If it's not next week, it's going to be in the future. It's coming. It's in the pipeline. It's going to happen at some point. We just don't know when that movie's coming out. But I'm convinced that it's going to be in the movie, but I'm hoping that Leia is in this next episode. I'm hoping.
No, it sounds... what you're saying makes sense. Like, the fact that 3PO showed up in this last episode would make a lot of sense for it to be like a preamble for Leia to show up in the next episode. I'm hoping... I would love to see it.
Yeah.
I would love to see it. I hope that Leia is done justice. I would hope that Leia is done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
absolutely.
The term correctly is very subjective, but I mean, yes, is done right. You know
honorably,
what I mean?
Right?
Honorably, yes. I think it's a huge ask and challenge for Thrawn to be to really get his due. That you really see him. It's a big thing to ask, and I hope they do it in such a way where people who watch it who don't understand Thrawn can actually really can actually really grasp, oh crap, this guy is a threat.
Yeah. And
what kind of threat he is. What kind of threat he is. So Thrawn, there's something we saw in the last episode. People might, I don't know, you might glaze over this. This is very important actually. When you see Thrawn looking at a virtual map portrayed to him, there's just a holograph map where he sees his units and what they're attacking. It kind of almost like it's a video game, right? Almost like he's seeing, these units, almost like it's a chessboard, almost like it's a video game. That's actually very significant.
Yeah.
Very significant. In the past, when we saw him in Rebels, and when we saw Tarkin do the same in Clone Wars, we didn't see Tarkin do much of it. So in Rebels, we saw Thrawn do a lot of this, where he actually saw and actually commanded and said, take this formation, do this, flank them, do that. Let's send in the other units from the back, from the rear, whatever. When we see him now send 2 gunships to assist Balin and Shin in taking down Ezra and Sabine, and then he's like, at first I thought, done, okay, send 2 gunships, boom, that's it, that's the end of, he's just gonna get a message later on that they've been defeated, whatever. That's immediately what I thought then and there, because that's what happens in every other show and movie we've ever seen, right? Then all of a sudden something's different. It's like, deploy this formation. I can't remember what he said exactly, but yes, deploy this formation. Oh, whoa. And then he's following them on screen or on a projector. This is a very important scene. This is a very important because this is Thrawn. He doesn't leave anything to chance. He is a micromanager. He deploys people. He deploys his troops himself. He tries to see who deploys, who does what, who attacks how, who defends in this way, in this strategy, even on a troop level. So that he understands, that thing when you're like, oh, the grenadiers do this, but then the ground troopers do that, and then the flamethrowers do this, and then this. Even if they're Star Wars characters, there has to be a commander at the center of things who knows the strengths and weaknesses. That's Thrawn. Are we going to see all of that? So we saw a glimpse of it just then. Are we going to see all of that next episode? Are we going to see how dangerous he is? Is he going to unleash some Dathomirian magic. Next episode.
Hey, he told the Great Mothers, "I need you to use your magic one more time." That's what he said. One more time. And what's in the cargo? What's the cargo they're moving over that look like coffins? What is the cargo?
Absolutely, 100%.
I think Thrawn's coming back with something
We're
we've never
see
seen before. I think Thrawn's coming back
Exactly.
with an army of the undead. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, like, the horror of knowing somebody that smart is in charge of an army of the undead to take back the galaxy?
I'm wondering if we should or shouldn't talk about the life debt thing.
We need. Oh yeah, we need
the
to.
Rebels. Yeah. So in one of the episodes of Rebels, Ezra is enticed by Darth Maul, and we know that Darth Maul is in there. He's in Rebels. What not necessarily a lot of people know is that Darth Maul actually entices Ezra a few times, not just a couple times, more than a couple times. One of the times he does entice Ezra is to bring him on this planet and into this place where there's a center for a nexus of the Force, and there's Dathomirian magic in there.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for Darth Maul to really sort of get in there and try to find out what is at the center of this temple, he needs to make a payment to Dathomirian magic. And what happens is Ezra he doesn't have them. Ezra's crew follow him. So Kanan and Sabine follow him into the temple. And then in order for them to escape, Ezra has to sort of not make a sacrifice, but it has to be made in that the Dathomirian spirits take over, possess, if you will, Kanan and Sabine's bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So Kanan and Sabine they're just completely possessed by these Dathomirian ghost spirits. To the extent that the Dathomirian ghost spirits come out and talk to Ezra, they're like, yes, they're like, this undead sort of thing. So Ezra gets them out of it, and he escapes, and it's an amazing sort of, it's a pretty cool episode, I'll be honest. It's not even, it's really cool. Like, I didn't expect it to be this, I thought it was going to be really stereotypical when I saw this whole thing about possessed and force ghosts and stuff, or Dathomirian ghosts or whatever. But then he escapes. He escapes, but technically, in terms of Dathomirian magic, he made a promise to Dathomirian magic that, like, you have to release them, and I'll do whatever you want. And the Dathomirian magic does. It releases Kanan and Sabine, and they're like, okay, Ezra, we'll take you, whatever. They don't necessarily say Ezra, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And then he escapes. Boom. Out of there. So Ezra owes the Dathomirian spirits something.
Yeah.
He does. This might be called on. This might be called upon later. I
didn't think of that. I forgot all about that. You're absolutely right. And it would be just like Filoni to bring something like that back into the... Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure if this is something super worth bringing up. I would not necessarily hazard a guess or care to...
I've learned to never say never.
It showing up. Never. That is exactly the flip side of that. Just never say never. And then Filoni is Filoni. And whatever he's done before... This is interesting. This is it's kind of like in shows when you see a blood pact or like a promise to a ghost or a promise to some sort of deity or something that this is, and it's creepy as hell and it's weird and it's in a show in Clone Wars, an animated show, something that you may not have ever seen in Star Wars before. They could find a way to bring it back.
Yeah. No, they could.
Yeah.
They really could.
Yeah, they could.
It's
not something so offbeat that they couldn't. On the contrary, they could.
There is something getting ready to happen. I mean, there's real. I mean, I think this next episode, I'm doing what Harris said. I'm basically hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. Like, I'm hoping to get because on Newsnet last night we were talking
preparing for the worst, hoping for the best.
Right. We were, how many years have we said? Because some of the guys I was talking to last night, they're a little nervous about this episode. Do they think can Filoni stick the landing? And I get it. I totally get where they're coming from.
Right.
But at the same time, how long have we been preaching in Filoni we trust? Look at Siege of Mandalore. Look at the way that story wrapped up. Like, he knows how to end a story. He knows how to finish a series. You know what I mean? He knows how to go about this. Look at what he's doing with Bad Batch. You know, I mean, that's got us caring about these characters that we're like, who are these guys? 3 years ago, we were like, who are these guys? Now we know, you know, and it's like, so there's been, I think, a couple of tiny missteps along the way with the series, maybe some editing stuff, but nothing huge, nothing that's like, they're going to ruin the series. You know what I mean? So I'm excited, and he's not directing it. Rick, how do you say his last name? Guys, don't get offended when I mess up names, because I don't mean to. You know how long it took me to learn how to say Usef's name right? Seriously,
Still hasn't said it.
It's I know. I'm so bad at it. It's a miracle I can even say my own name right. As a matter of fact, I went to sign my name. Where did I sign my name on? I don't remember what it was. Oh, at work. They were asking if I wanted to get the flu shot for the year. And I was signing the no side, and I spelled my name wrong. I forgot one of the L's in Miller. Like, I'm an idiot. So in my defense, it was before my coffee, and I just gotten there, and it was so. But anyway,
imagine
I'm horrible with
coffee
names.
to spell your
But
name.
Rick Fumu, you guys know what I'm trying to say. Like, he's directing this episode. He's done really well on the finales, and I'm an idiot. I'm sorry, guys. And I've got total faith in this episode. What I'm really going to be mad about is it being over. I can't believe that in 4 or 5 days.
Can't believe that this is going to end next week,
over.
and then
Yeah.
we're going to wait. Not until the end of the year, until next year.
Yeah,
Oh.
we've been waiting since 2020 for this show when they first announced it, and it's finally here, and it's almost over already. Like, we've waited 3 years, and it's almost over already. So I'm hoping it goes out with a huge bang, because Filoni, like, I know he tells a story. He tells a story that needs to be told. I get that. But at the same time, you have to solidify the characters you're doing now to make us care about them when you get to your movie. That's where I'm at. You have to make Grandma, who comes over on Thanksgiving every year to watch The Mandalorian with you, care enough about Thrawn to go watch this Star Wars movie when it comes out in 3 or 4 years. You know? So, who's this blue guy, you know, with the red eyes? He's scary.
He's magnificent. He's got a scary man right
He's
there. We have
scary.
to worry about him.
Oh my God, he's not as good looking as the little green one, you know. Like, so it's you got to get those people in the seats for the movie, you know. So you're setting it up, whether you want to admit it or not. You're not just telling a story; you're setting up another story.
Absolutely.
So make us care about what's coming. If this next episode falls completely flat, nobody's going to care
100%.
enough to go see that movie. You know. I digress. Anyway. Guys, let us know below in the comments, what did you guys think of the last couple episodes of Ahsoka? Where do you think this series is going? What are you hoping to see? What predictions have we made do you think are correct? What do you think we're off our rocker on? Let us know. You're not going to offend us at all. We definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Next week, we're going to be talking the finale of Ahsoka. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's here already. God. Bring it on, though. I'm ready. I'm not like mentally ready, but I'm spiritually ready. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not ready, but I'm ready. Like, let's do this. So that's all we've got on Ahsoka. Well, let's get into the villain bracket this week. Usef, I know I tell you this every week, but we may have new listeners. In a nutshell, real quick, explain to everybody what this villain bracket is. Real quick, layman's terms.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I got you.
Here we go. No, here's the thing. So everybody who, hopefully if you're tuning in for the first time, and if you're tuning in for the not first time, I love villains so much. I think that they're very important to any story being told. I'll try to keep it brief this time because Star Wars in general, to me, is unlike any other story. Not just because of the Force, which is very unique to Star Wars, but also because the villains in Star Wars are quite something.
Yes.
I've decided that one of the ways for me to know more about Star Wars and get into Star Wars deeper is by trying to get to know the villains much better. So, in an effort to do so, what we've done is try to set up all of the villains in Star Wars. We've categorized them in different categories, and we're trying to make this sort of competition in between the villains, where we have to vote on who would be cooler, who's the coolest villain in each category, and then eventually, I suppose, in all of Star Wars, but we'll talk a little bit about that later along the line once we've actually sorted out the categories first. The idea is that not necessarily who would win in a fight, because that might be biased. That might be over before it even starts.
Mm-hmm.
But who would be cooler? So from our perspective, as fans, as Star Wars lovers, which Star Wars villain is cooler? And everybody identifies with villains for different reasons.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about villains. You can see some of these villains portrayed in your life in their own way. You can see some of these villains shown in such a way where you couldn't even believe that they would exist ever. And that's what makes them outstanding and outlandish, right? So we go along villain by villain, and we try to see who we would choose to be cooler. You could choose cooler because that's who you'd want to be like, or you could choose cooler as in like, oh crap, that's cool. I've never heard of that concept before, etc.
Right.
So tell us, Mr. Miller, who won the last bracket?
And you guys ain't gonna believe this. Usef and I couldn't believe this. Like, we were getting ready to record, and Usef was like, "Oh, who won the villain bracket?" I'm like, "Oh crap, I completely forgot to look." I'm like, "I'm glad you said something." So I would have looked like an idiot trying to pull it up in the middle of the show. I pull it up, and you guys voted.
I wish we had pulled it up in the middle of the show because it was so surprising.
You guys voted. It was between
Admiral French.
It was Admiral Trench and Director Krennic from Rogue One. I was voting for Trench. I think you were voting for Trench.
I voted for Trench.
Believe it or not, in a landslide victory, Director Krennic won, like 86% to 14.
Yes.
Like, you guys really, and my favorite comment, I think it was the only comment on the YouTube side, was he's got some really nice capes. He's got some wicked capes. So so I was like, man, we pulled it up, and I'm sitting here looking at the result. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And it's just like, no way. There's no way Krennic won. Krennic won. So you guys voted. That's what you guys voted.
Yeah,
I did not see it coming. You guys think he's cooler than Trench. That's awesome. I did not see that coming. If I had money on that, I'd have lost it. That was just some Hail Mary out of nowhere that I did not see coming. And so,
when you can imagine that the two hosts of the podcast actually vote for someone who ends up losing, then you can see that actually this thing could go either way. It's all about who we genuinely feel is cooler, who we like, who we feel. Yeah,
that's right. So we've got the rest of the names for right now. We're doing military figures. And we've got the whole wheel ready to go here. We're going to pick them. We got a random wheel set up so that you guys know we're not the ones picking them. The wheel's picking them, so we're going to find out who the next two for this week are.
We're going to have to find a way to have this show up on the video eventually.
I can do that. Okay, so the first one is Gallius Rax.
Okay.
Gallius Rax is the first.
Interesting figure. Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. I'm like, I know who I want him to go up against, but we'll see who's left. So, let's see here.
Don't say Tarkin.
No, General Grievous.
Ooh.
So, interesting. Gallius Rax and General Grievous.
Okay.
What do you think of this combo?
A lot of talking about Grievous. No. So Gallius Rex is someone who. So I studied him just a barely. Okay. Oh, by the way, so I forgot to mention this bit. So one of the reasons why I love this villain bracket so much is that I get to study more about the Star Wars villains.
Right.
And they'll show up in things that I haven't necessarily seen before. So, for example, you may not know Admiral Trench unless you've watched Star Wars Clone Wars series. If you haven't seen it, you will have no idea. He doesn't show up in anything else, maybe in a few comics, but that's about it. But yeah, so when in an effort to try to be more in tune with Star Wars, which is ultimately the end goal, right?
Yeah.
I have to read up on Gallius Rex. I have to read up on a few of these characters that I have no idea. I haven't shown up. Haven't shown up in what I've watched before. They show up in novels. They show up in comics. If you've watched the movies, you know who General Grievous is. Mm-hmm. And actually, General Grievous has this own bit where you will not know the backstory of General Grievous just from the movies. You'll know it from a few other pieces of canon information from novels and from comics. General Grievous actually used to be a man. Bet you didn't know that. A full man. He was completely biological.
Yeah.
And then he slowly turned himself into he started implanting his own parts, substituting his organs for parts.
Mm-hmm.
And he started slowly doing that. And then he had such a fascination with the Jedi, but he was not that strong with the Force. So he eventually started, what's the word? Started taking on Jedi himself and started earning Jedi lightsabers. There's nothing I'm missing there, right, Brian? So he was recruited eventually.
Right. By Dooku.
He was recruited eventually by Dooku. Exactly. Yes. But in terms of Gallius Rex, that's a whole other beast altogether.
He's wicked.
He's completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. Doesn't show up in the Clone Wars. Doesn't
No,
show up in the movies.
he shows up in the Aftermath trilogy. So
Aftermath.
Gallius Rax was a character that Emperor Palpatine himself wanted to bring in as a plan B to run the Empire if something were to happen to him. That's basically what he was, and basically his plan B to try to resurrect the Emperor is what was kind of going on. So not to do a lot of spoilers for the Aftermath trilogy, but we come to a point where Gallius Rax, during the Battle of Jakku, that's what he's trying to do, is resurrect Palpatine. And it's on Jakku, by the way. He's from Jakku, which is weird because everybody seems to be from Jakku. And so it was really interesting to see him start in the first Aftermath book as this level-headed, Imperial, he's pulling the strings behind the scenes. If you've played the Mass Effect series, I can't think of his name.
Mass Effect?
I can't think of what the guy is called in the second game that resurrected Shepard. I can't remember his name, though. He was the one sending him to the different places with the cybernetic guys. He's basically that character in Star Wars, pulling the strings. He was trying to control Admiral Ray Sloan, and she wanted the power. She wanted to be the new emperor, but he was basically the guy above her and controlling what she was doing. And so he ended up turning into this frenzied guy, fanatic by the end of the third book, where he's trying to resurrect Palpatine, and it was really, really cool. He's a really cool character. I really like him. If I had to vote, though, who's cooler? I have to go Grievous. Grievous is just cool. He's cool. He represents. I don't know if anybody has ever seen this before, but the three main apprentices, the three villains of the prequel trilogy, represent what Vader ended up being. You had Maul, who was the hatred.
That's
you
cool.
had Dooku, who was the fallen Jedi, and then you had Grievous, who was the cybernetic aspect of it. You know what I mean? And so I love Dooku. Not Dooku. I'm sorry, Grievous. I think he went out like a bitch. I think he did do that. But I think he had to go. He fell at Obi-Wan's hands.
Obi-Wan moment.
Yeah,
it was kind of at the expense. Yeah, Obi-Wan's victory was totally at the expense of Grievous.
But I like how he's
uncivilized.
So uncivilized. And it carries up to when he's telling Luke about the lightsaber, he's like a more civilized weapon, or a weapon for a more civilized age. And I love it.
We can totally see where they did that.
Yes.
I haven't actually decided yet. I'm gonna have to read up a little bit more.
Do it, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
Gallius Rex sounds very interesting, but
he's
I haven't
very cool.
seen enough of him. Because here's the thing:
Right.
I think Grievous. This might be because of all the memes and because of all the internet stuff. This Grievous seems a little bit not boring, just run through. What is that? You know what I mean? Less overdone. I don't know.
Overrated.
It just seems to not overrated. Just
No?
Okay, I've seen enough of him. He's not that cool anymore.
Gotcha.
So when I first watched the trilogy, I was like, "Oh shit, Grievous is cool! Whoa, look at what Obi-Wan did!" That sort of thing. Grievous is the typical brilliant villain in a video game. Do you know what I mean? You play with lightsabers, and that's your weapon. Guess what? Grievous carries 4 of them. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And he crawls, and he stands, and he does.
See, that's what I'm getting at.
Coughs, even though he's a robot who coughs.
Cooler. Yeah, I feel like he's
a robot who's got COVID. Seriously,
he's a robot that has COVID. Oh my god!
How does he have lungs? How is he coughing? Yeah.
He's a robot with COVID. That's messed up.
Yeah.
In Legends, they explained why he was coughing in that 2D Clone Wars micro series. They explained why he used to cough, because he wasn't like that at first, and then in the end of the micro series, none of this is canon. that we know of.
Legend.
But they're kidnapping Palpatine, like for the beginning of Episode 3, and Mace Windu like uses the Force and like crushes his chest plate, and it's like it squeezes his lungs, and so he's coughing after that every time you see him. So,
okay. Interesting.
But I think the reason they did it was because they did that 2D thing the whole time, and he just talked normally. And then the movie was getting ready to come out, and they're like, "Why is he coughing all the time? Crap, we got to come up with something to make him."
Yeah.
And so I think that's the only reason they did it. But no, I think
That actually sounds
I'm
like
voting
a very
Grievous.
cool reason why.
Yeah. I'm totally going to vote Grievous. I think I am. As much as I love Gallius Rax, I think he had a lot of potential, but Grievous, he can't wield 4 lightsabers at once like Grievous can. He's just awesome. So
careful what you say. You might just find out Grievous loses in the next.
Spoiler alert. So here's the fun part, though, guys. What we think isn't what matters. It's what you guys think. You guys can go vote on who you think is cooler
100%.
Between these two. You can go to our YouTube channel if you're not already there. You can vote there. You can go to our Facebook page, and you can vote there also. So definitely go check that. And you can vote multiple times if you want. Go vote. We want to know who you got. And comment. Tell us why. Tell us why you're picking these guys.
If you feel so strongly that you want to vote multiple times, we will take it to heart.
Do it. Do it. So that is our villain bracket for the week. Let's get into some mailbag questions, man. How do you guys get a question on the Star Wars Canon Podcast? You send it in to starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. I go through each week and pick out a few and send them over to Usef and see what we want to talk about on the air. So we've got a couple questions this week. One of them is from a while back while we were still on our hiatus. But the person that sent it in is a very loyal listener. He's had several questions on the podcast. And it's actually Kyler Knowles. Kyler Knowles sent us a question back in May that I went back to look at. And Kyler sends in, my question is a real simple one this week. Are we ever going to get a sequel to the Black Spire adult novel? If my memory is correct, it was left on a cliffhanger and could definitely have a sequel. Thanks for answering my question, and may the Force be with you. Thanks for sending in the question, Kyler. So this is one, like, Usef, I don't think you've read Black Spire, have you?
No,
you have not. Okay, so Black Spire was basically to real quick to answer your question. I hope we do. I hope we get a sequel novel for that one because Black Spire was actually, a lot of people don't know this. Black Spire was a sequel novel to Phasma, and not a lot of people realize that. People who've read it know what I'm talking about. If you haven't read them, I'll explain. The Phasma novel was all about Phasma, her backstory. Right, but it was all told through kind of a second-hand telling of what happened with Phasma. The present-day, quote-unquote, present-day characters are Captain Cardinal, which is like the red armored version of Phasma that we see, action figures of. It's him and Vi Marati, who is a spy for the Resistance, who's walking around Galaxy's Edge now. And it's basically Captain Cardinal interrogating Vi Marati about Phasma's history, and that's how the story is being told. Because Captain Cardinal wants to take down Phasma. That's how Phasma's backstory is told. It's through a secondhand kind of, which it worked in the book. When you read it, it works. Black Spire, yes, has nothing to do with Phasma. Nothing. But it's around, the story surrounds Vi Marati and Captain Cardinal again. And it's a direct sequel to what happened in the Phasma novel during the present day stuff. So that's how it's kind of a sequel series, if that makes any sense.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, and not a lot of people realize that that's a really cool duology. When I say read those back to back, people are like, why? Like, Phasma happens way before Force Awakens, and this happens between episodes 8 and 9. Trust me, read them back to back. It makes sense when you read them that way. And so definitely go check them out that way if you guys haven't. So anyway, Black Spire is a cool sequel to Phasma. I really hope we do get another novel continuing that story.
Yeah.
Because the way Black Spire ended was, I think they were on Batuu, and giant Star Destroyer came out of hyperspace right above them, and Vi Marati looks up and realizes the First Order found us. We're here. They're here. That's Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer. One of two things has happened. Either one, that story just never got finished, which it needs to, because I would really like to see what happened with Vi Marati. I would say Captain Cardinal, but you got to read the books. So I'd like to see what happened there. Or we already got the answer to the cliffhanger, and it was, I don't know if it was or not. I need to go, actually, as soon as we're done recording this, I'm going to go pull out my Black Spire and look at the end of the book. I wonder if that Star Destroyer isn't one of the Final Order Star Destroyers from Rise of Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like, you remember that he sent all the Star Destroyers out to different planets to start destroying planets like crazy? Because at the end of Rise of Skywalker, we see Star Destroyers crashing on, we see him on Bespin, we see him on Endor, we see all these Star Destroyers crashing. Is that what that was? That was above Batuu? Is it one of the Final Order Star Destroyers? I don't know. I have no idea. So, it would be nice if we got a sequel to it, and that's not what it was. But I really don't know, to be completely honest. Usef, I know you haven't read the books, but I mean, do you think that's possible?
I would love to see something like this. I think, firstly, it sounds amazing because
it's pretty good.
Yeah, the more this ties into the actual events, the more I want to read into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's not just firstly, the fact that there is a Captain Phasma novel, that in itself is making me upset that I haven't read it.
It's very Mad Max, too.
I just haven't
it's very Mad Max.
I just haven't gone around to reading it, and that's my fault. Because I really wanted to read it. Because I really liked Captain Phasma. I loved the villain in Episode 7.
She's beheading people left and right. Like, there's an arena scene in that book that she is just brutal. Like, holy crap.
So yeah, I mean, I wanna take a look at that. So the fact that there's a sequel novel to that,
and it tells a completely different story, yeah,
and it sounds badass as well, even if it is a different story. And the fact that there's someone who's interested in having a sequel to that, crap, that sounds
it's pretty cool,
really like a great recipe.
So, the second book, I touched a lot on what the Phasma novel was about. Black Spire is basically Vi Moradi gets sent to Batuu. It was one of those books that was released around the time as Galaxy's Edge to kind of promote the fact that there was a theme park named Galaxy's Edge that happened on Black Spire, right? So it was one of those books, one of those tie-in books for the park being open. And she gets sent to Black Spire Outpost to start a resistance base, basically. And that's what she's there for. She goes, she gets a job, she starts making money, she starts befriending the locals and trying to slowly tell them who she is and try to recruit people for the resistance cause. And then at the end of that book, that's when that Star Destroyer comes out of hyperspace above the planet. And it's there, and then that's the end of the book. Like, that was it. So, but interestingly, like, Rise of Skywalker came out just a couple of months later. And that's why I'm like, was Rise of Skywalker the answer to that cliffhanger? And I hope not. I hope there's another story in there somewhere to be told. I really do. So, to answer your question, Kyler, I don't know if we're ever going to get another one or if we already have it. I hope we don't have it, and I hope they're going to end up doing it somewhere down the line. Because it was the same author also on both books. It was was it Delilah S. Dawson? I believe it was Delilah Dawson wrote both those books. So it was the same author on both books. So I'm hoping she goes back, and I hope she gets tasked with a third one to kind of continue that story. The more time goes by, though, the less likely I see that happening, because we're moving on to bigger and better things at this point. Now we're focusing on, I can't stand using this word, but it's the only word to use, the Mandoverse time, the New Republic era, and High Republic. Like, right now they're really focusing on High Republic and New Republic. Like, that's where most
the reason why we're not using Filoniverse term is because we're hoping the term Filoniverse refers to a much, much larger portion of Star Wars.
So I hope that answers your question. If you guys are listening to this and you've read both books, let us know in the comments. Do you think Rise of Skywalker was the answer to that cliffhanger? If not, do you want to see another book and make it a trilogy, a proper trilogy? I think it'd be awesome. Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for sending in the question, Kyler, and thanks for being an awesome listener, man. Really do appreciate it. And the second question we have for this week comes from, and I don't yell at me if I say your last name wrong, Timothy Sundry, I think is how to say your name. Timothy sends in, hey there, Star Wars Canon Podcast. Got a question for your show, and I apologize if it's already been asked. If the Jedi thought the Sith had been extinct for a millennia, I'm sure he's talking about Episode 1. How did Yoda know about the Rule of Two that Darth Bane started? Also, do you think that the Sith will make a cameo in the last phase of the High Republic. Keep doing what you're doing. You guys rock. Thanks for the kind words, man. We sure appreciate it. Let's focus on the first part of that question first. Usef, I know you haven't read any of the High Republic stuff, but this goes back further than the High Republic. We don't know the actual canon story of Darth Bane yet. We know he existed. I'm hoping that the Darth Bane trilogy of books is what they end up making the canon version of his story. I hope. But because Bane started the Rule of Two, let's just assume for a second that is the main story, right? Let's just assume that's the story. The first book ended with the Sith basically going into hiding, the Army of Light thinking the Sith army had been completely destroyed. That's when Bane started the Rule of Two. How would Yoda know about it? How do you think he would know about it?
I think that Yoda would know about it because eventually, through Darth Bane and his disciples, they would show up with Force users. They would interact with Jedi. They would interact with other Force users, and it would be documented somehow. Like they would interact. It's thousands of years, right? So it would show up. Somebody would make a sense, or they would be like, "No, he's my." For example, like a Jedi would meet up with fight an apprentice, and the Sith apprentice would reveal, like, "No, there is only us, and that's it." For example. And then that would then be sort of understood. I think that there's more than one way for that to have been sort of documented throughout history. I know I'm kind of going namby-pamby about this. I'm not giving a definitive answer, but I don't necessarily think that it would have been so clear-cut as to say, well, here's our definition here, and this is what the Sith do, and this is a flag with only two people on it, and we're only two because this is the Rule of Two, etc. I do think that, exactly as Brian says, there's a lot that has to go through it. And I, being a person who has read about the High Republic series, but I have not yet read the High Republic series, I am very excited to see specifically the next show, Acolyte, coming up. I bring that up because that is going to be set around the High Republic era.
Yes.
And it's going to be a dark side of the Force-centric characters. And they're going to really, really touch on this. I think that's when we're going to see a shift, a diversion into the Sith. They might meet Siths of old. There might be something in there where they meet Siths of old, or they might be just Siths of old themselves. We don't know yet. The term acolyte in itself is kind of like a Jedi Padawan, a Sith acolyte. So we'll see. And I think it ties in perfectly with High Republic. And I think that I can't wait to get started on High Republic. So on my list personally is Thrawn, and then I'll get into High Republic. But yeah, tell me, bro, you've read High Republic up until now.
It's not often I disagree with you. But I think, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because I'm like you, I can't give a definitive answer. The thing is, because those Darth Bane novels have not been made canon, that story hasn't been made canon, we don't know what the canon story of Darth Bane is. Maybe there never was a Sith army. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that never happened. Maybe it's always been there's only ever two Sith. And so that's the only thing I can think of is that now with canon, there's going to be, a point where there was no Sith army. But even then, we've already got comics that said there was. I mean, Dr. Aphra, there's a lot of flashbacks to there were dozens of Sith at a time in temples, like tracking down people with red lightsabers. They were Sith. So I don't know. Maybe that's something that started before the Sith supposedly went extinct. Because remember, Ki-Adi-Mundi said in episode 1, but the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. They never knew the Sith were behind the scenes still doing what they were doing, let alone infiltrating the Republic right under their noses. So the only thing I can think of is that maybe there was a Sith army at one point somewhere. The Jedi wiped out maybe most of them, or something happened where they got wiped out, and the Jedi knew about that, and they knew there were only two left. Whether that be, Darth Bane, or, maybe they know Bane is the one that took care, because we know Bane started the rule of two. That's in Clone Wars. Yoda talked to Darth, to a figment of Darth Bane, not the real Darth Bane, but to Yoda, he's like, yes, started the rule of two, you did. So he knows about that. So maybe they just thought they got both Sith at one point and they both survived it and they just kept on going, and behind the scenes and behind the shadows to let the Jedi think they were actually dead. That's the only thing I can think of. But the High Republic part of it, that's the only answer I have to the Rule of Two thing. But the High Republic thing is interesting because the main villain in High Republic so far has been the Nihil. These like space Vikings, right? These pirate Vikings take everything that is not nailed down for yourself. And they hate the Jedi, they hate the Republic, they hate the idea of the Republic. And I don't want the Sith to make a cameo in the High Republic. I think it'd be nice to actually have a Star Wars story that's not revolving around Jedi versus Sith. And the Jedi can't find out about the Sith anyway until Episode 1, right? Until Darth Maul is the first one that they've seen, that they know they've seen, in a long time to reveal himself. And so, even with Acolyte, I think it's going to be a thing. Look, if Jedi and Acolyte, because they've already said there's going to be a lot of Jedi and Acolyte, if they find out about these Sith, anybody who knows about them has to die. There can be no witnesses. There can be 0 witnesses to the Sith. And so, it'd be cool if they even dropped the Sith or something, in High Republic. I don't think they're going to, though. I think they're trying to keep it focused on this is the enemy. Like now in the second phase, which is before the first phase, it's the Path of the Open Hand. And then in the next phase, it's the Nihil. And then, I don't know what we're going to do with phase 3, the defeat of the Nihil. But I don't like the Sith. It's one of those things, as cool as they are, they have to stay anonymous. They have to stay hidden. They have to stay in the shadows. They can kill all the Jedi they want, but they cannot be revealed. They cannot be found out. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, because there's no other reference for it. It only makes sense. What
Right.
you're saying is the only part of it that makes sense, really. I'm just excited to see them in the first place because. Yes. So, what are the Sith? Well, the Sith, as an antithesis to the Jedi, obviously, but in what? Well, in how they're inspired to use the Force. Where the Jedi seeks balance, the Sith seeks over-encumbering power, or you know what I mean. Like, yes. So they want to tip the scales so that they achieve the power that they want to achieve.
Yes. And
in the same sense, what the Jedi learn is not it's learn to hone their skills. The Sith learns to exude as much effort and passion into the Force, and then get so much power and thirst from it that they then can sort of get as much power from the effort that they put in.
Yeah.
So it's like sort of like the more effort you put in, the more emotion you put in, the more you get back, and then I'm so much more powerful, etc. So there's really so much to actually discuss here. So I want to see more about that. I want to see more about Sith. If I'm going to see that in the High Republic, because the High Republic seems to be a bunch of very wise men. The way they talk about the Force is very different than
Mm-hmm.
I've only read excerpts so far. The way they talk about the Force, the way they teach the Force, it's kind of like Star Wars Lucasfilm. It's kind of like it's giving us a way to look deeper into the Force, into a different way to learn about the Force in the first place. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Do you think the same?
Oh, I love it.
Having read the novels?
Because every Jedi, it's almost like every main Jedi, right? And whenever they get introduced for the first time, one of the things that the authors of these books go out of their way to
Wookiee
do.
Jedi.
Yeah, Buriaga. I can't wait to. And he's got to be alive because they're looking for him in the next phase. So he's got to be alive.
Nice.
What's cool is every author makes sure that every main Jedi, and they started with Avar Kriss, and they did it with every Jedi since then. Even in the new phase, they've talked about it. How each Jedi sees the Force, how they feel it, what it is to them. To Avar Kriss, it's a song. Everybody has their own song that she can feel. There's a Jedi in phase 2 now she can see the different colors. She can see in the distance these bright colors in the distance, knowing she knows there's life over there. Some of the creatures like one of the books I just finished, there were these like zombie bat things that were in it, but they were like full of this like mineral that was like zombifying them. They basically got the coal miner's lung is what they basically, the black lung from mining this mineral that was a sentient mineral, and it embedded itself into their lungs and then grew and basically just filled their body with this mineral, and they were zombies. And the way she saw that was just these dark purple and black swirls in the forest. And she, and so they've gone out of their way to really make sure they show how everybody interprets the force, what it is to them, and so I really like that a lot. And a lot of people have different opinions of the Force in the High Republic. I really like that also. We have Wayseekers who are going out on their own. They're not Jedi anymore. They go follow the Force where it takes them to help people on their own. And for a lot of people, they're happier that way, and even talking about Jeddah, right? Because I listened to the Battle of Jeddah the other day while I was at work. The whole thing, all 5.5 hours of it. I listened to the entire thing in one sitting, driving around in my car. And they've really driven this home with how Jeddah is a sacred place, how it's not just the Jedi anymore. There's other sects, that use the Force, the Church of the Force, the Guardians of the Wills. There's these different. There was another one too, and I don't remember what they were called. Something about the fifth brother or something like that. They were basically wearing skull masks of their deceased, and they were like shapeshifters or whatever somebody wanted to see is what they saw when they looked at him. It was kind of weird, but there's all these different sects. And like going to Jeddah, the Jedi saw that as a very holy place. There were these Kyber mirrors down in this one chamber. You could go see a reflection of what the Force wanted you to see, or see these visions and these reflections of the Kyber. It was really cool. So yeah, High Republic is really building on the Force in a much. All of that in a roundabout way, Usef, to agree with you. They're building on the Force in a much different way, and I think you're gonna love it when you get into it. There's just so much. It's so deep, and there's so much lore to what the Force is, because there's more people around. Like when you look at the classic trilogy era, and even some of the prequel stuff, there's not a whole lot of Jedi, and so you really don't get a whole lot of different points of view of what the Force is. In the heyday of the Jedi, it was something spectacular to behold, man. It was really cool. So
High Republic, indeed.
Yes, I'm excited for you to start reading it. I really am. But
I'm excited too.
But I don't think the Sith are going to pop up. I hope they don't.
Okay.
I hope they don't. I want to keep it centralized to this story, if at all possible. Because they can't be revealed yet. They just can't yet. So, that's where I'm at on that. So, what do you think about the Sith popping up in High Republic? I mean, is that something that you think would make sense or no?
I would want to see it. I'll be honest. I would want to see it. Because I would want to see how they're doing, where they are. I want to see a status update, so to speak,
right.
And where they are in terms of all of this wisdom. Maybe one of the ways that they pop up is that someone shifts over to the dark side. I would want to see that. I want to see what, or from themselves that they've been seeking it out.
Yeah.
So the Jedi and the Sith, it's all about balance in the Force.
Yes.
If the High Republic, if there's so much Jedi, if there's so much light, something has to happen that the dark side sort of goes up a little bit as well.
Right.
Maybe that someone within the Jedi actually starts getting these, starts getting tempted, starts getting these visions, starts seeking out the dark side, and then they find it.
Mm-hmm.
That might be extremely interesting on its own merit.
Right.
Kind of a Rey going dark sort of vibe. Well, somebody else, you know what I mean? Like somebody from the High Republic going dark, and then they sort of seek it out. Just in terms of, it's very innocent at first, and then they start feeling this emotion. Then they start being tempted by it. And they start exuding or exerting this effort. And then this switches them over, and they find this master who's willing to guide them into this dark side, etc. Yeah. Very interesting.
The only way I could see them doing it, and to really make it work, and I feel like it would be a cop-out, and it would make the Nihils just seem like they were nothing the whole time, is if you find out that the reason the Nihil are doing everything they're doing is because a Sith put them up to it. to cause a blow to the New Republic or to the
A
High
hidden
Republic
Darth Maul sort of
to
thing.
start the descent. Yeah, that's the only way I could see it making any sense. And it's going to take away from the Nihil if they do that. I don't feel like the Nihil are going to be nearly as cool anymore. You know what I mean? Or as formidable as an enemy, no matter how many death blows they do to the Republic at the time. I don't think it's going to land flat if you find out the Sith were behind it the whole time. So I'm hoping that they don't do it, and I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I hope they don't. So anyway, I hope that answers your question, Timothy. Thanks for sending it in, and guys, let us know. I want to hear what you guys. We like starting the conversation. We like hearing what you guys have to say about what we talk about. That's the whole point of this, is to find out what you guys feel about all
It was a great question. Absolutely,
it was a great question. So, Usef, if there's anything else we need to talk about, I think that's all I had on my show notes for this week.
Nothing at the moment, other than I just really want to show people or tell people that if you haven't seen Clone Wars or Rebels, I've only watched them recently in the build-up to Ahsoka over the past year, and I can tell you honestly, I have so much to say about Clone Wars and Rebels, but the simplest thing I'll say is that Ahsoka hits 20 times harder because I've watched them.
Yeah.
Both Clone Wars and Rebels.
I could see that.
Not just Clone Wars, not just Rebels. I am so happy that I've watched Clone Wars and Rebels. So happy. Now having watched Ahsoka so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something that's worth bearing in mind.
I've got a coworker that she had never seen. She'd seen like bits and pieces of some Star Wars movies here and there. But she had never sat and watched everything all the way through. Definitely had never watched Clone Wars or Rebels or anything like that. But every week when I come in, and she sits at the desk across from me, and every single week, every Wednesday I walk in, and I'm just energetic as like, guess what last night was? It was Ahsoka night. And I'm just spill the guts with Ahsoka, right? And talk about how good it was. And she wanted to start watching Ahsoka, and I'm like, no. no, bad, Becca. You cannot watch Ahsoka yet.
You haven't even seen Anakin,
right? And so I told her, I was like, you wanted to hit different. You have to watch some others. You have some homework to do. And so she started watching Star Wars movies. She started with episode 1, 2, 3. What did she say she just finished? She watched the Obi-Wan series, and then she watched Solo, I think, last night or the night before. And she really, really loves Solo. And I told her, don't watch Clone Wars in the order they are on Disney Plus. Watch them chronologically. You'll have way more fun with it. So that's what she's doing now. She started Clone Wars. So she's actually going to sit and watch all this stuff leading up to Ahsoka. And I think the end game, and I told her with the sequel films, which, you know where I am with the sequel films. I told her, I was like, look, those are Star Wars movies, but they're not Star Wars movies. like you can watch them if you want. They're there if you want to watch them. If you enjoy them, great. I'm envious that you got 3 extra Star Wars movies than I did. But you don't have to. you don't have to. But if you want to keep going after it. So she's watching Clone Wars, and she watched like the first couple episodes, and she said, she's told me today, I think I'm really going to enjoy Clone Wars. It's not what I thought it was. She's like, I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm like, I'm so jealous you get to watch it for the first time. Begins. Yeah, exactly. And so I've got her on this path. And it's going to take a while, but I've got her on a path. So we'll see how it goes. And I'll keep you guys updated whenever she tells me, whenever they get into extra stuff. Because I almost told her to start watching Rogue One. And I was like, ooh, wait, no. Andor's in there too. I almost forgot about Andor. So watch Clone Wars, then Rebels, then Andor. Then you can go to Rogue One, then the original Star Wars. And she's just like, there's so much. I'm like, I know. There's so much. So... but anyway, that's where we're at with that. So, guys, thanks for joining us this week. We've had a great episode this week. I had a lot of fun talking to Ahsoka, especially a lot of fun talking with you, Usef. Thanks for joining me at such a late hour tonight to hop on and to talk about our favorite thing in the world. Sure do appreciate it. You and your balloons. Oh, you didn't get them that time. All right, that's right. That. Do I get them? Oh, come on. This sucks. The force is strong with this one. I don't see how he's doing it. So, Like I said earlier, guys, after the mailbag question, or before the mailbag questions, if you guys want to get a question on the podcast, you can send it to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. I'll go through and pick out a couple. And they can be about anything Star Wars, anything. And, I'll give you a hint on how to get them on the show, a better odds to get your question on the show. Ask about obscure stuff. Like these two were tonight. Don't ask about like big news stories. We're probably going to talk about them anyway. He's over here playing with the balloons. But ask awesome questions about novels, stuff that not everybody knows about. So before Usef runs the internet out of digital helium, we probably need to get the episode done. So Usef, is there anything else you want to add before we sign off tonight?
I'm very, very excited for the finale of AHSOKA next week. We're
Same.
super excited. Exactly. So, and we would love to hear your opinions on absolutely everything. If you want to email us just to share your opinion, please do that. Please share your opinions on Facebook page as well. This is what we really want to pay attention to social media lately. So, we're really excited to hear from you.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I think that'll do it for us. Brian and Usef are out for tonight. See you guys next week. Have a good night, everybody.
May the Force be with you.
You've just been listening to the latest episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast. I'm Brian Miller, joined by my co-host, Usef Waly. You can stream new episodes of the podcast every Saturday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/1138productions. Be sure to like and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening in on. If you'd like to get a question on the show, you can send it in to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. Until next week, keep it civil, and may the Force be with you.